and I think.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Back with another lifestyle chat with my friend Jordan.
Hi.
Jordan was Miss Black Georgia. I don't know any of the years for these things.
Yeah, because at the women's show you said Miss Savannah State, you're wrong, and I was just like, that's small.
Oh,
you said 2012, it's 2010, 2011, Miss Savannah State.
Oh, what was Miss Savannah State 2012?
Christelle.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
she was Miss Savannah State. Miss Black Georgia. She was the director of the Miss Black Georgia. Was that South Carolina and just Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
She owns a etiquette business, Impressum
School of Social Graces.
Impressum School of Social Graces. She's a mom. And if we get some interruptions, that's because she's a mom.
She's here.
Speaking of Impressum School of Social Graces, we're gonna talk about confidence and self-esteem today. I think for me, it was something that I've always struggled with, and because I'm in fashion and styling, people don't really realize that. And so people don't necessarily believe that I've had issues with confidence and esteem and whatnot, and that's kind of how I got into styling. I didn't get into styling because I was good at it. It kind of like morphed as I got more into doing that. I remember, the beat program, when at Savannah State, that's how I ended up getting into corporate America through the National Urban League, the Black Executive Exchange Program. There was a conference and we got sponsored by Cigna, but I ended up being recruited by UPS, and one of the executives there, I remember I was in the room kind of, I guess, going back. When I got to Savannah State, I had just left a very troubling past at another PWI, and I had the time of my life. So by the time I got to Savannah State, my GPA was shot. I was trying to rebuild it, but within the Black Executive Exchange Program, that conference, you're with the cream of the crop of students across a bunch of different HBCUs. Insert here, if you hear a little kid thing going, we gotta entertain the child some way. Okay, the students were so cream of the crop, even the students from Savannah State that came from the business department. I didn't feel like I could compete with them students and be in a room with them. I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. And I remember it had to be 300 students there. I went in the bathroom and I broke down. I was just sobbing. And you know I'm a crybaby. I was sobbing. But there was a woman there. She is still with UPS. I still follow her on LinkedIn. I still pop in. Her name was Tracy. She said that I was a breath of fresh air. I guess
different from the people who were
from the people that were there. These are Summa and Magna Cum Laudes, and it was just I ain't got all that.
What are you doing? No. You're fine over there.
It kind of really put me in a better headspace, at least back then, and I'm not gonna date myself, but that was a while ago, on even having to believe in yourself and believe that you're worthy of being in a room with other people.
A lot went through my head as you were saying that, going back to college and even where I am now, there are a lot of things that I've been through that have made me who I am, of course, and that I realize have happened for a purpose. And even, so back to Savannah State, I never would have thought that my college experience would have been what it was because of how grade school was. Elementary, I had friends. Middle school was really hard. I had bad skin. Somebody told me I was the ugliest girl in the class. Those middle school were the days I would go home and cry.
Oh no.
Yes, and it was just it was never bad, I don't want to be here anymore. It wasn't suicidal thoughts or anything. It was just I want to feel better. I feel like I always knew who I was, but I wanted to who I was better. And that was a part of puberty. That was a part of growing up. And there was always a twinkling of faith, that mustard seed of faith that made me believe it was gonna get better. And I remember changing from bottle cap glasses
You had glasses?
to contact. I have contacts now. I had glasses.
Let me think about this. I don't think I ever seen you
High
play
school, early high school. Were you a teen peer counselor?
No.
No.
Nothing
until
I got to Savannah State.
High school was good. I went to a predominantly white high school, Savannah Arts, and I believe it equipped me to be successful at an HBCU. It helped my speech. I was one of the people that was told I talked white, and I didn't know what that meant.
I heard that, and I mean, I went to Windsor.
I don't know if I cared.
I didn't care. I heard it from my family. Like, you know, people will say all the time that we don't sound like we're from Savannah or
yes,
we're from
that's
the
what
South.
It is. That's
like,
what it is.
I got my people on the east and the west side of Savannah. So it's just like, you had the school, I had the neighborhood
Right.
that I had to learn how to fluctuate between. And it was, no, I didn't learn that in school, and even being in those totality of those different environments is how I got to where I was. Like, and it's not that I didn't care what people thought about me. I did care, but it was like internally. Like I never like outwardly like expressed it or like went off on anyone like that. And it just kind of made me timid and shy. And I didn't really break out of it until probably maybe my junior or senior year at Savannah State.
You had a shell. You had a shell, and I'm so proud of how you blossomed. I'm like, this girl is confident. She's unapologetic and fearless, or seemingly fearless. I know you still, as an entrepreneur, have those moments where it's like, I know, I don't want to bring, it's recent. You said you shared it on social media. You had a day the other day where you just cried. And I was like, yeah, it's one of those entrepreneurship days. I don't know what's next, and that's normal. Believing it's normal is a part of what makes you feel like, okay, that was a good cry. I'm done with it. It's a release.
Because we don't normalize it. Yeah.
You mentioned being a loner, and I think that I don't know if I ever tried to believe there would be a clique or a group of friends for me to fit into, but in high school, I had an encounter with a group of about 3. There were not many black girls at Savannah State. At Savannah Arts. There were not many black girls at Savannah Arts, but I had an encounter with a group of about 3 other black girls, and it was pivotal. It was pivotal because I went from having a group of black girls that I hung with at Savannah Arts to learning to have to be okay with hanging by myself. I'll never forget how I realized when I got to Savannah State that not be dependent on being a part of any group, because where I was going, I wasn't gonna have, not the time, but I wasn't gonna have the time to care about so many opinions.
To be able to carry them and care enough about what they were saying about what you were doing.
Exactly.
If they were gonna be discounting where you were back then,
I just want to make sure you're good. We don't have to be friends ever again like we were before, but I just want to make sure you're good. And that's a lot of the conversations that need to happen that never do.
Yeah.
Those are the apologies that you have to be okay with never getting, that we talk about on social media. I was talking with my sister like 2 days ago, and now I'm getting into talking about caring about what people think. Chris Cuomo, the journalist reporter, was interviewing his brother, who's the governor of New York, his older brother. And I mentioned how he seemed nervous talking to his brother, and how that was like me talking to my older sister. And it wasn't, she was like, well, is it nerves? Is it being fearful, or is it out of respect or reverence that you have that type of demeanor? I said it's out of respect or reverence because I care about what you think when I'm talking to you, because you're my big sister. And I know that you're gonna get me right together if I say anything wrong, if I do anything wrong. That's the kind of relationship we have. So then we got to talking about caring what other people think. And she said, I never saw you like that. I never saw you caring what me or mama or daddy thought. And I told her, I think I care too much. It's not so much kept me from doing what I wanted to do, because that's the other point she made. She said, I never thought you cared about what we thought, because we tell you something and you always do what you want to do anyway. I was like, well,
you said, that is reverence. I do the same thing.
When you're talking
I'm gonna seek out counsel, and I care about what you think. But just because I care about what you think is not going to influence the path of what I want to do and where I'm going.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I remember like my pastor, because I was at a point when I had left Atlanta and I had come back to live with my parents. And it was just like, I was just so used to being on my own, and I did not want to rely on them in the sense of what I did, because I left a great paying job. I left my apartment. I left a lifestyle of being single and having to come, and independence, and having to come and stay with my parents. And it was just a shift, and it was just like, well, I still have to respect them. And even in that sense, it was just like even that dynamic changed our relationship, because when I left, now my dad's at the very, very tip of the baby boomer spectrum. My mom is right after that. I think that's a Gen X, I think. But whatever is after the baby boomer, like they're like 5 years apart. So like my dad is at the end of the baby boomer. So like, and I'm a millennial. So it's just like our work ethic
are we millennials or
completely different. Although I grew up in the house with them, and I definitely have their work ethic when it comes to, I gotta eat, I gotta hustle, I gotta get this. But millennials, we tend to be like, okay, well,
entitlement.
I would say yes, it's a sense of entitlement, but it's like, I'm gonna figure this out on my own. I don't need to have put like 30 years in on a job somewhere.
Right.
So I think in that sense, like when I went into working where I did work in Atlanta, I had the trajectory of like, oh, I'm gonna work in the operations and I'm gonna move to corporate, and I had a whole path laid out. Because like when I came home and I had to figure out stuff, and not only what made me happy, but where my purpose was leading me, it was completely different.
And did that like shoot your self-esteem down? It was humbling.
It was, oh Jesus, you talk about humbling. Humbling has been the word of the year in 2016, 17, and I would say 19.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it was very humbling to say the least. And I mean humbling because, you're relying on your parents. You don't want to, especially at our age. Like, you don't want to be relying on them for certain things. It was because I'm going to follow what I want to do. And I was in a good place, but I didn't have any attachments to where if I can make certain moves, I could do that. I didn't have a spouse or kids or anything. I didn't have a house that I had to worry about like being on the market. If I wanted to move a certain way, I could. Whereas their experience was completely different. Like by the time she was like my age, she had 2 kids and we were almost in middle school. And so, and like, they were married trying to figure things out as a young married couple. And it was just like, our experiences looked completely different. And I think where the reverence that I was trying to give to them while also being respectful to what I wanted to do is where the shift happened. Because it was like, I can't be asking for help and then I want to go off and do my own thing. But what we had to do was we had to figure out the balance of what that looks like. It took a lot of educating. And I would say my parents didn't especially my daddy. My daddy has questioned every decision that I have made over the last 5 years. I'm talking about quitting my job, multiple jobs that I've quit. But it was just like until like they started actually seeing the fruits of the seeds that I have been sowing, like, and the styling and the covers and all the shoots. It's like, okay, she may actually know what she's talking about. And I'm just like, what I didn't understand, I don't understand why I had to prove it. Because I'm just like, you raised me.
Yes, why don't you trust?
So why don't you trust me? Oh my gosh, and even speaking of that and going into relationships real quick, I remember for some reason, because like I'm single more than I've been in a relationship. Especially the last few years I have been. And like my dad, I don't know. I think I was dating Michael.
Wow.
But yeah, he was white.
Oh, I didn't know
Jewish.
This.
Yes.
Wow.
He was an awesome guy, but I remember like my daddy was like questioning like my decisions, and I'm just like, pause, fam. Like, come on.
You share that with your friends, and they're like, oh, they just care. Your parents care so much, and it's honestly, it's care, it's concern, it's worry too. And there's
it's definitely
there.
work because, like again, it looked so different from what they were accustomed to. Like this was somebody that did not look like me. We did not have the same face.
Not putting into consideration that they've had their moments of. Our parents have all had their moments of exploration,
telling,
and curiosity.
And they may not talk about it, but they have.
Oh, we know.
But yeah, and it was just like, even that, like I wouldn't even say that even knocked my esteem as much as my confidence. And I'm just like, you have to be confident in who you raise and knowing that I'm gonna make the best decisions that I possibly can for where I am, my experiences have looked different from yours, and it's taken us in different places, and you have to be okay with that.
So speaking of relationships, I know everybody's about to sit on the edge of their seat because I barely talked about it, and everybody's been so respectful not to ask, and I feel like because people know, but then anywho, inspired by what you have to say. I'm recently divorced, and with my prodigal daughter return, it was like almost like an I told you so, but I was okay with that. It was like I knew better. You talk about humility and your self-esteem. I would say 2019 was a year of manifestation. It was a year of me actually getting back to me. And look, I had a million words to explain it before, and I've been silent about it for so long. When I left my situation, there was like it wasn't, I don't know if I'm not trying to compare it to anyone else's situation, but there was it didn't hurt like some people would think every divorce hurts. It was more like freeing. It was like a purge, but it was more like, I would say that a part of it was my disobedience. The people who loved me the most and who really knew Jordan had my back and were guiding me. And because I knew better, and because I knew that there was forewarning, when it was time to realize that it was time to cut it, it was like, okay, this is what I was supposed to do.
It's got grace on it. Like, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in a similar situation in a relationship to where there was no grace to move forward on the situation. And so it could not go forward. And I think because I was spiritually obedient in that I knew that I wasn't going to disobey the Lord again because I had done that, that it was just like, once I recognized there was no grace to move forward with that person, I'm not going down that road again, because the first time that happened, I was just so lost, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to wake up. And it took a good 9 months to get up out of that thing.
Like laboring and breaking the baby.
So, yes, and it was just like, I couldn't even like move forward with anyone or anybody. I was single for like 3 years.
Okay,
Yeah, and it was like I had to use all that time afterwards to figure out who I was. And that's, when that's even like within that how Street Styles came up out of everything, just trying to figure out who I was and everything else.
Yeah, I keep saying there was never a point where I didn't know who I was. I always had these internal conversations with myself, asking myself, what are you doing? Why are you in a situation where you're not being treated like the queen that you are? Jordan, all these conversations. I realized that I disobeyed you because I heard you when I was engaged and you said don't do it, and I did it anyway because I figured I saved myself for marriage. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you want us to do. So I'm doing it right. So just cover me as I go through this and do what I want to do. It's like I was making God conform to what I wanted to do, being disobedient. And he even covered me in me asking him to get me out of a situation that I got myself into. And so did it shoot my self-esteem? It was humbling, but it was also reaffirming. It strengthened my esteem. It made me more confident in the fact that, if I trust God to help me redefine what it is I want for my life, and even as I'm still redefining, and even as I'm still and always asking him to direct my path,
Silly me. Okay, I just checked my phone. We're gonna have to do a part 2 of this because a lot of what Jordan said got cut off. I ran out of storage space. My fault. But I will drop all of her links below, to her YouTube, her Instagram, her blog, Jordan Riles. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about, any other topics, us. I will catch y'all on the next video.